I'm gonna call this meeting to order at 11:32. Would you please call the roll?
Rahman.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Powell. Here. Savell.
Here.
Smith Charles. Whitebird.
Here.
Hoffman.
Present.
Markham.
I'm here.
We have a
Thank you.
quorum.
All right. Before we stand for the pledge, I just want to introduce the gentleman in the corner, John Clark. He is from SEMCOG, and he's taking some video today of what we do here at the Finance Committee in Oakland County. So,
Right. 6 o'clock news.
be nice. Okay. And with that, let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have the approval of the minutes from October 2nd. I'll take a motion. Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Powell. Any additions, deletions, changes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Next up is our approval of today's agenda. Moved by Commissioner Whitebird, supported by Commissioner Long. Any, again, additions, deletions, changes? Do you have any additions or anything to the agenda, Charlie?
No.
Okay, let's prompt the board.
That's a scary question, Charlie.
I shouldn't answer so quick.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Thanks,
Scary.
man.
Gwen forgot what she was asking.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Give me the opportunity anyway. Okay, next on our agenda is our public comment. It's the first of two. It's for 3 minutes for anyone who wishes to address this committee on any agenda items that we have today. Is there anyone here that wants to address us? Seeing no one, I'll close our first public comment and we'll move into item 7. A, the Moody's bond rating for Oakland County. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Long.
It's even file, right?
I'd like to ask Brian Leffler, our CFO, to speak with us about this.
Good
I
afternoon.
think we're all kind of proud of it.
Good morning. Brian Leffler, CFO for the county. For some of those who served on ED&I, gave a quick presentation is that last week, both Moody's and Standard & Poor's Global Ratings each affirmed the county's AAA rating with a stable outlook. Essentially, that's the highest level that the county can receive from either rating agency. The reason we're bringing this to you is kind of put everything into context of some of the things that we do over on the administration side. The WRC is in the process of selling some bonds, of which both ED&I and Finance had authorized the resolutions to move forward to the BOC. The BOC approved that resolution back on September 19th, same date the budget was done as well. But then for the WRC to issue those bonds, or the county, first needs authorization from these committees, the board. Also, the Michigan Department of Treasury had granted qualified status under State Statute 34, means that we filed our 2023 ACFR and the information was timely. And then the last thing is that to comply with state statute, anytime debt is issued, at least one bond rating has to be on the transaction. The board has a policy that there has to be 2, so that's why we have both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. And so in compliance with those statutory and policy requirements, there is going to be, and the approval from the ratings, that there's going to be issued a offering document for approximately not to exceed $18 million for the Huron Rouge Sanitary Sewage District bonds, capital improvement bonds. And with that, we sent that document, county disclosure, also the budget that was approved on the 19th to the rating agencies. As you can imagine, we asked for written questions, we answered them, and then last week the ratings were affirmed. But I think for those of you, I would take a moment to please read the Standard & Poor's. They issue a full credit opinion at any time they issue a rating, whereas Moody's tends just to do a press release on transactions. They just have a different style. As I mentioned, probably now this is probably my 39th year in public finance. I have to say I was really impressed with what Standard & Poor's wrote. I think it was a very, very positive. And I'm not just trying to say that it just really all encompassing in terms of everything from economics, management style and things like that. But some of the key comments that was like, as we do know that and acknowledge that the county is one of the wealthiest and economically productive counties in Michigan. We do have robust reserves and liquidity position bolstered by extensive budget preparation and planning. One of the comments that S&P made is well embedded in comprehensive financial management practices and policies that have driven operating strength. And again, this is when they look at Oakland County, they're comparing you to other AAA counties in our cohort. And then also, I just want to highlight with the BOC establishing both the CFO and the deputy CFO positions, highlighting your discipline on financial oversight. And then also, as you know, we have a very relatively low debt costs, minimal pension pressures, and in terms of filing of the ACFR on a timely basis. So this draft offering document is gonna go out here next week. Bonds are gonna be set for sealed bid on Thursday, October 31st, with an expected closing right before the Thanksgiving holiday. So again, appreciate your support of putting together the budget and adopting it on a timely basis, us fulfilling our obligations under both statute and your policies to receive, again, the coveted AAA rating with a stable outlook. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Powell?
Question, how many township villages and cities we have total? I think it's 64?
62.
Oh, in the Oakland County, yeah,
It's 64?
62.
62, okay, so in the report, we're missing one. It says 30 cities, 10 villages, 21 townships, so I just wanted to point that out. And then my other question is, I don't know if it means anything, but I was kind of over here, I'm like, dang, I've been saying 64, so I apologize on that. And then the second thing, I wanted to know, and you can send this later, but I would love to know what other communities or counties that we were in comparison with, for AAA bond rating, and if it still has our same data as far as population, what cities kind of compare with, what counties compare with that or whatever they're comparing it with? Cause I would just love to, visit that county's page or information just to kind of do a comparison on myself for things that I personally wanted to kind of review. So when you get a chance, that's all I wanted to point
Sure,
out, so I
and
can
so just let you know, it'll both be in-state, i.e. other Michigan counties that do have AAA, they could be in our cohort. But I can also send you a list of other counties and their webpage for other counties nationally, so like say in Maryland or California or something like that, we can certainly provide you that list.
Yeah. Thank you, that'll work, thank you so much.
Yeah, that came up in EDI this morning too, so I think we'd all kind of be interested in who we were being compared to.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner, what's your last name there? Cavell.
Right, I don't feel bad.
I just want to highlight, right, all the good things Brian said, which is very cool, but one interesting thing to note is that the county's revenue raising ability is constrained by the state's systems of tax caps, however, and its exposure to the volatility in the auto industry. That's not something for us, but like here now, but just thinking about the future, tax caps and auto. That's all.
Commissioner Wyper.
And I said this at ED&I, but there's no higher rating, right? And then they said the factors that could lead to a downgrade are significant declines in available fund balance and a net cash ratio is closer to 50%. We're nowhere, that's not even in the future, right?
Well, and keep in mind, you have a general fund balance policy as well, which
Yes.
contributes to the AAA, yes, correct.
Okay. And material growth and long-term liabilities ratio to above 150%, and we're only at 11%, 11.5%, they noted that. And then material weakening residential income well below 100%, and we're at 128, so, A downgrade's not in the future, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, not so much items that are in, say, your control or what we're trying to do as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
so it has to be outside our control. Something that's catastrophic.
I think it's a reflection of the process. We talked about this in EDI. There's so much coordination and overlap as we build our budget every year, that there's a lot of checks and balances, and I think that shows, so.
Yeah, and so last comment is that this is new for us, essentially giving you this information. It also is a good opportunity for us to keep you informed of what outside third parties are looking at. One of the things, as you'll note in the report, Standard & Poor's does reference other reports, i.e. they did change their criteria that was under a public comment. As you can see, Oakland County was not adversely affected by it, but essentially we were having to work under a new set of guidelines for this AAA as well. So if there's anything you need or have any other questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else for Brian? Thank you. All right. Yes, let's prompt the vote to receive and file the Moody's bond rate. Motion carries. Excellent. Okay, next up we have item 8, departmental recommendations. 8A is the 2024 apportionment of local tax rates. Need a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell.
I never tax rates.
Good morning. Please introduce yourselves.
These taxes you look at.
Good
It's a
morning.
lot of taxes.
Good morning. Chair Markham,
Not the local, that's all.
members of the Board of Commission. I'm Michael Lohmeyer, Equalization Officer for the County Equalization Department. I have Shannon Moore, my very highly respected and expert in our standard section. Grateful that she's with us. I don't know if my report will be as interesting and wonderful as the bond report just was, but Mr. Leffler, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, no, my taxes is much.
What you have before you, and what was given to you was the 2024 apportionment report. It's really the draft report because we have an election coming up in November, so some of these rates are gonna change. But just to kind of explain the report before you first,
Negative.
what you have here is some of the changes that went in, and just to let you know, we were given all the forms timely and properly by the schools, all the required forms. So some of the tax rates you have in there, those are effective now for what we have for draft tax rates. You'll see Headley applies for the rollbacks this year. For the last couple of years, we had some pretty high inflation rates, so we did have some of the rollbacks over the last couple of years, but you'll see many of the line items where we do have them. Several of the school districts do have some debt decreases, so you'll see some reductions because of those things. You'll see those in the reasons for changes for many of them. Some of them had expired millages. I'm not gonna point any of them out, I'll let you have any kind of questions for us. But we've got reasons for changes and we try to make them as descriptive as possible. Some have hold harmless decreases. What I will point out is that there are some elections coming up where there are gonna be some millage rate changes, and I'll come back in December to you with the final 2024 apportionment report. We do have one that's coming up, which is Oakland County Parks and Rec. Holly Township has a library. And these will affect 2025. So some of the ones coming up in election, 2024, some will affect 24, some will affect 25, some will affect 26. The ones that will affect 24 is you have Oakland County Parks and Rec. Holly Township has library. Oxford Township has a couple of fire, EMS, and safety paths. West Bloomfield Township has a library millage election increase. Elmont Schools, Madison Schools has sinking funds. Walled Lake Schools and Warren Schools has operating increases. The remainder ones that are on the ballot is for affecting the 2025 and 2026 tax rates. Shannon, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that sums it up.
It's good that you do all that.
I'll just open it up to questions at this point if you have any.
Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Smith Charles.
And you can, we can either schedule some or offline, but I just wanna know and understand clarity for my Bloomfield, township folks, which would be, is that the Bloomfield Hills pre, non-pre, transfer, non-pre, and Headley rollback? Like, I just wanna kinda understand what all that means and, you know, because I see more being done with them with this than in Pontiac. Pontiac, nothing changed. So that's just my question, and you can shoot me an email, we can set up something, and you can just explain that to me so I kinda know what that is. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Lemire, and what was the nice name?
Shannon Moore.
Shannon Moore.
Shannon. I just was curious, you know, Headley, hearing that term brings back nightmares of being on the school board. Could you just explain like what, an example of why a Headley would be rolled back, and then also what is included in a unit decrease? Is it like what is unit decrease basically?
Okay, for the unit decrease, say the community, their maximum allowable is 12 mils, but they choose to levy 11.
Yeah.
So they went lower, if they need to increase it, you'll see a unit increase or decrease.
Okay.
It's what they need for their budgeting purposes. They don't always levy the max.
Yeah, we didn't always levy our max either with Southfield Public Schools. Do they have to notify you of this unit increase or decrease, or you find that just through your
In the
measurements?
forms that they have to file with us, we do a comparison to see if they're increasing or decreasing.
Okay, very good. And then can you just say like what would cause a Headley rollback?
So in the Headley amendment, it is that if the community cannot generate more revenue than the previous year, higher than the rate of inflation. So there's a calculation used taking in the variables of it to determine if there's a Headley rollback.
Okay, last question is, are there instances where there's a unit increase, decrease, and a rollback?
Yes,
Do you have an example of that today?
I do not, but
Okay.
I know it's come up before, we've had it before, I don't know if there's one this year, but
That was one of my last question, which is what would cause a whole harmless decrease?
the hold harmless rate is a calculation determined by the state. So it comes into play with the per pupil. And I can't tell you everything on their spreadsheet, is very complex, but they do a calculation and there are limitations on it. So they determine whether or not they may have to decrease their hold harmless rate.
Okay, thank you so much.
Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Roman.
Perhaps this is incorrect, but isn't a example of the Headley rollback a year or two ago when the county had its operating millage go below 4 mils for the first time? Cause now it's like 3.969, and it was like 4.012, and it was.
It
Some
has
sort
been, it started at 5.26 and it's continuously been rolled back.
Yeah, and is that an example of what she was saying?
I think she wondered what is Headley rollback? And all communities, every community except debt millage is subject to Headley rollback. Some may not have a Headley rollback depending on the calculation. So if it was 5.26 and they didn't have a rollback, they could levy that 5.26 again.
So then we are an example of that.
Yes,
So there you go.
most every millage, but debt or special assessments are subject to Headley rollback.
Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Michael, thank you as always. My question, I feel like at one point in time we had a visual, like a graphic version of this. Does that still exist? I know several CVTs put together kind of like a bar graph, kind of how their CVT compares to all their neighboring county. Is that something we still do, or have we done, or am I imagining
For
that?
each one of these CVTs.
No, it was just sort of a graphic representation, because the table is great, but I know like City of Royal Oak, for instance, if you go on their website, they will actually show like where their millage lies relative to the other CVTs in Oakland County.
Oh,
And it's
sure,
quick
yeah.
and easy,
Yeah,
right?
we
So
do that, we used to do that for Novi.
Right, and
Yeah.
I feel like I remember that at some point in the past. I didn't see it in the
Um,
packet this time, and I didn't know if we've strayed away from that or if that still exists somewhere.
We haven't done it since I've been here.
It's
I
not
can-
part of the apportionment
Yeah.
report,
We may,
but we do have.
Yeah, we do have it, it may, I have it on our website, I have to look. Because we have several graphs on our website, we were actually looking at that today to see if they were up to date.
Okay.
We used to do that in Novi, and I think the current assessor still does. I can look in our website to see if we have that, we have a lot of information on our website.
Okay,
I was just looking at some things today, but I can look to see if we have that.
I appreciate it, because I was actually looking for it last week, one of my CBTs had actually reached out for this. I ended up actually stealing Royal Oaks information and sending it over to them, which is fine.
And that assessor came from Oakland County, so that may be
Correct.
something that they added,
Right.
he was doing last year, so we can look at our website and see if
Somebody
that's.
did just request that, so we did create one recently.
Okay,
Another community followed from Royal Oak,
got it.
so we do have that information
Got it,
available.
okay. And if it does exist, if you could send it out to us, I'd really appreciate it.
And if there's any tools like that that would be useful that we can put on our website, we will do it.
It's helpful, because I'll tell you, one of the things I hear from constituents all the time is everybody complains about their taxes, right? But at the end of the day, if you can actually go back and say, here's the data that actually supports where we are and kind of how we rank compared to, you know, the other CBTs or even outside of the county, then that information is always really helpful.
Sure, yeah, we can create that.
And that graph is strictly their city portion or township, just that, not including their school districts, not including,
Correct.
so it would be just their
correct.
individual rate.
Correct,
Yep.
or however it looks, if you do sort of a compound bar where maybe you break it out into the different sections per CBT. I mean, however you do it is fine,
Okay.
but just I think visual really helps a lot for a lot of
Oh,
folks, myself.
absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you very much, and I just want to say that I wholeheartedly support the Headley Amendment. And I honestly can't ever imagine why some elected bodies would ever want to override Headley, because it's there to protect the property owner. And then I also support Proposal A, because most of you guys are too young. But before '93, when that came into effect, if inflation was 10%, your tax went up 10%. They were forcing a lot of seniors out of their homes, and so that, I think that was to the rescue, you know, I think it really helped stabilize it a little bit. And finally, the power to tax is the power to destroy anyway, so whatever we do to limit that. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith Charles?
Yes, I have to say that Proposal A was a terrible thing for the city of Southfield and Southfield Public Schools and school districts, which are very few, like Southfield, where we had more business revenue than we had home-based revenue. So I'd have to say that we were not held harmless as a school district, because most of our money is sent, yes, I did say our tax revenue in the city of Southfield is sent across the state, and our school district ended up getting the short end of the stick on that. So I am actively working with anyone who wants to find a new way to fund our schools that doesn't hurt the larger, you know, the communities with a little bit more of a tax base from the businesses. Not that it's germane to this conversation, but I figured since Mr. Hoffman mentioned that, I would indicate that there are some communities that Prop A basically gutted.
Maybe we should have a lottery.
I don't know.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions? Commissioner?
Yeah,
Go
just
ahead.
since Yolanda got us on this train, I think it's important to note, when we look at our apportionment of the taxes, that the county operating is $317 million, so that's all the things that all the people in here and in these buildings do, including clean water, public health, police and sheriff, apportionment, all the other things we're gonna vote on today. Townships and villages do all those things and then take out the trash. Cities, same thing. School districts is $1.4 billion going from Oakland County residents to the schools in Oakland County and throughout the state. Intermediate schools, again, that's the ISDs, that's workforce development, that's specialized skills, that's things for people with special disabilities. Community colleges, $116 million to keep our community colleges funded. Parks and recreation, vote yes on the millage, is $27 million for people like Chris Ward and all the things in Holly that make people wanna go to Holly, like Holly Oaks. The Zoo Authority, $7.5 million so that people can enjoy the zoo. The Art Institute, the DIA, Huron Clinton Authority, Oakland Transit, $75 million so people can get to places where they work, live and play. Like, this is great stuff.
A wise person that I used to know, knew a lot about budgets and finances used to say, I'll give the residents all of the services that they're willing to pay for.
There you go.
And that's what millages and taxes do, is pay for the services, and I think that's a good way to look at it, you know, let's make sure we're giving the taxpayers good value for their tax dollars, so. Anybody else have any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, then let's prompt the vote on item 8A. Okay, motion carries. Thanks very much.
Thank you for allowing us to serve you today.
Next up, we have item 8B, the exception to the bid process for extension of the Sixth Circuit Strategic Planning Facilitator Services with Dr. Brenda Wagenknecht Ivy, PhD.
Okay, thank you.
Take a motion. Commissioner Whiteberg, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Richard Lynch. I'm the Circuit Court Administrator for the Sixth Circuit Court, and thank you, Commissioners, for hosting us today.
I'm Christina Bujek. I'm the Court Business Manager for Circuit Court and Probate Court.
I believe that the contract exception report has been attached to your agenda today, and in the interest of your time and the fact that we have a lot of other folks here, I would defer to any questions that the panel has, as opposed to prattling on like I want to do.
Okay. Commissioner Smith Charles.
Yeah, perhaps it's the most realistic question, which is why an exception?
The challenge is that there is a very limited pool of thought leaders who specialize in strategic plannings for courts. We have reached out to 6 individuals who do strategic planning, 5 of whom have experience working with courts, 1 other had recently worked with a local bar association. And of those, 4 of those individuals were booked up, they could not fit us in. And while there are other individuals that might be out there, getting the level of expertise and the deliverables that are critical to a strategic planning process is very important to the court. I say that by way of reference to the fact that oftentimes a criticism for strategic planning is that you get a very nice bound volume that sits on a shelf and collects dust. I can say from experience looking around the court and from working with Dr. Ivy that the strategic planning reports that she produces produce results. And because she is a subject matter expert and she is a thought leader in this area, we would look to avoid going through the RFP process because her time is very limited. And we would like to just select her and have her go forward with the expectation that we'll be able to move very quickly and have a report come in because the court is looking at doing an implementation of a new case management system. We have the juvenile justice reforms that you're familiar with from many, many meetings that you've gone through in a lot of different contexts. There are other changes that are happening to the court, and we believe that this would be the most effective and efficient way forward for the court to achieve the results it's looking for.
It's important to note that the 6 names that Rich mentioned, Rich reached out to the National Center for State Courts, the National Association of Court Managers, the Supreme Court of Michigan, and the State Court Administrative Office to get names of thought leaders that work in this, this little market, right? And so that is how he accrued that name, or those names of the 6 people. And I believe that the reason we asked really for the exception is Dr. Ivy has indicated to us that her schedule does not permit her, she's working us in essentially, and her schedule did not permit her, she's not gonna respond to an RFP if she has to, like she doesn't have time for it. So I think it's important to note that. If we put out an RFP, she might be our only response, but she has said she won't respond.
That was a question of mine as I read through the material last night, cause it sounded funny, but
Yeah, she
I
has,
understand it.
she said she's just overcommitted and working us in is, all she can do.
RFPs can be
They
complicated.
can.
Commissioner Cavell.
This is part of a State Justice Institute grant. Tell us more about that.
The State Justice Institute is a federally funded organization that looks to improve the operation of justice systems throughout the nation at state court level. So we've reached out to them, as many other courts throughout the state have, to achieve this money as we try to move forward and improve the internal operations of our court to better serve our community. So we're taking advantage of that federal money to help move us forward.
Cool.
This opportunity Rich knew about from his previous work in Wayne County, so they have
Yes.
I don't know, would you say about 14 courts have engaged in this across the state?
We've had 11 Michigan courts or unified courts that have engaged in this, as well as 3 Michigan court-related projects. One of those was with the Michigan Supreme Court Judicial Council.
Cool, okay. And this looks like it's mostly for the implementation of the
Michigan Court Management System.
Yeah, of the My Court program.
Management system.
Because we're
Yeah.
going with the state case management system, I believe we'll be kicking off sometime around mid-November. We'd really like these projects to run kind of parallel to one another, so we can start to identify ways that we can unify our processes, that we can make them more efficient and make them work with the state case management system.
Okay, now, we, if memory serves, we appropriated money for you all to look into a different management system.
To a vendor system, yes.
Yeah.
And we actually went through a whole process and we selected, but the state system is the direction that we are headed. The money that was appropriated, kind of earmarked for that, I believe will still be needed in that the state case management system, what we have now isn't necessarily just a case management system, right?
Sure.
Oakland County has a very robust, we have great technology division over there, and they have customized it and made it just do so much for us. The state case management system is going to need some ancillary applications, right? To interface with it, to continue to perform the functions that the county clerk needs and that the court needs. So some of that money I think will still be needed in that it will pay for the development of those systems, the ancillary systems.
Cool, okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Seeing nobody else, let's prompt a vote on item 8.
While commissioners are voting, I'll just remind you that this does not include a budget amendment. The plan is to use the carry forward amount, and Corey's already, if you wanna just
I'm
do
so-
that.
I'm sorry, actually, I think we've agreed with Fiscal that we will not be using carry forward because that won't come until January. We wanna be able to start the project as soon as possible. We've actually identified a line item that we will be able to use that will cover our share without any additional appropriation or changes to our budget.
Excellent.
Perfect.
We like hearing that.
Same.
We found that.
Bottom line.
Okay, did we prompt the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
We have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Commissioners.
Have a good day.
Okay. Next up, we have item 9, Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Item 9A is the Exchange Project Transformational Brownfield Plan in the city of Pontiac. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell. Most of you saw the presentation that was made in EDI, and I think Commissioner Hoffman has looked at it and agrees. We don't probably need to go through the whole presentation again of that, unless, is there anybody here who wants us to do that? Commissioner Powell or anybody?
It's a good project.
Okay, then we will not see the presentation, but I will open the floor for questions and do we wanna hear from Mr. Toomey before he takes questions? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, let's hear from him
Okay,
for a second.
Mr. Toomey, why don't you give us just a quick rundown of what this is all about? We do have the information in our packets, so we can all look at any material you might be referencing.
Okay, Pleasure to meet all of you via Zoom. Very much appreciate the opportunity. I should also give a huge shout out to Brad Hansen for all of his assistance, and frankly the city of Pontiac as well. And there's Mr. Griffin, who is the lead developer on the project. And in addition to that, the huge shout out to the MEDC and all the work that they've done thus far to get us to this point. Quickly, I'll just ask you guys, and then if you'd like an explanation of the transformational brownfield plan, happy to provide, and then we can talk about the various uses if you'd like. Did you need a quick tutorial or overview of the TBP?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, I think we're good without it. The commissioners they're all nodding their head like they're okay. Commissioner Whiteberg.
I did have a question. You did a great presentation at EDI, but I did want to ask, where I didn't get a chance. Have you been involved in any other projects similar using this program? I know it's a relatively new program. It was probably only taking place in big cities like Detroit and Pontiac. Have you used this program anywhere else? Or are you familiar with any other projects?
Defer to Dennis Griffin and his experience in Grand Rapids. Dennis can talk about his other project.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. Yes, we were awarded transformation of brownfield for a project called Factory Yards in Grand Rapids, which is a former furniture manufacturing plant in southwest Grand Rapids off from Godfrey, which is also mixed use in nature, 475 apartments, about 150,000 square feet of commercial space on 12 acres. Slightly larger than this, but a similar kind of fringe CBD development with a combination of new construction and adaptive reuse of buildings. That was awarded in October of '23.
What stage is it at? Is it done? Is it?
No, it's under construction, pre-construction primarily, and environmental remediation right now. It's going to be at a minimum a 3-year project, more likely 5. It's a large project like this one is. They're all multi-year projects.
This one's going to be 27, we think, right? This is going to be 20.
Yeah, this one, the residential specifically should go at a faster pace. New construction, we can pick up probably 40% shorter construction time frame versus adaptive reuse for residential.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rahman?
I was just gonna quickly lift up the fact that, for Charlie, Angie, and Bob, we talked a lot about walkability was the other big piece of this. As this relates not only to this project, but with the Woodward Loop being now changed from one direction to 2 directions. And the fact that we're gonna be bringing all these folks into Pontiac, we wanna make sure that they have a quick and easy way to get around. So that was something that did come up. I don't know that we have any definitive answers just yet, but we did elevate that in ED&I. Just wanted you to be aware.
That's good. Commissioner Powell?
And I was gonna say, with the transformation, just to kind of help y'all kind of know a little bit more, with that transformation, I think that project, let me say this, with that transformation of the roads going 2 ways now downtown and taking away the loop, that was basically the reason why we needed to do that, because our downtown was not seeing any business, no support, not even support from the communities. So the whole goal is now to transform it to be that more welcoming area, the more walking, riding, family downtown, because we haven't had it in so long. So with this project, I will say that the community is in support of it, and I thank Mr. Griffin for even bringing such a project to our city. And at least with all of the electeds who govern our city, we all are in support of seeing this project come to light there. And we need the housing, we need everything that he's bringing to us. So we are really excited to see this project become developed in its quick, swift time frame, because it's needed. So, and he's focused, just so you all two know, he's focused where a lot of his stuff is on the other side of downtown, where there has not been anything over there. So he is really bringing life to the other side of downtown Saginaw, of our entire downtown, just to give you a little background. So I do support if all of you support it, and we'll see what this development eventually bring to the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cavell?
So when I was looking at this the other night, I didn't see who on the city council voted for this resolution in favor, so I just wanted to double check that this has actually passed. And this isn't something, because there's a draft resolution, and this isn't something you're going to talk to Pontiac about, you've already gotten them to say yes to this?
Yeah, Commissioner Cavell, we have received approval of a concurrence resolution based on the OCBRA's approval of the combined work plan. In addition to that, we received an agreement or an approval of the affordability agreement for the exchange flats. And that happened last Tuesday evening.
I watched it.
So city council seated, if I'm understanding, that they said if the Oakland County, oh, okay. Okay, and can you, and maybe you were saying this when I was looking through the PowerPoint just now, but can you give us the like affordability mix?
No, it would
Right,
never
is
made
there
it.
a
Yes.
threshold of AMI you're looking
They had to approve
towards?
first what we.
Yeah, 20% of the units will be set aside at 80% of AMI for the period of the NEZ, which is 15 years. In addition to that, Commissioner Cavell, just as you've supported other projects in places like Ferndale, this project has naturally occurring affordable or attainable housing, I should say, within the project. So rents range from about $900 to $1,800, depending on the unit type, with an average rental rate of about $1,400 a month across all unit types.
1,400 on average, okay.
Yep.
You did? Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah, alright. And I guess just to ask, has the school district of Pontiac just had any input in this, just cause this will impact them? Not that you necessarily had to, but did you ask them or talk to them? Or did anyone get their take?
And we all right.
Alright.
They got a lot going on over there.
You're not
stopping
using
no
any
project.
housing trust fund monies to try and fill any of these gaps? Just all the brownfield?
They do.
Currently, go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, we've had discussions early. The allocation was spoken for, or proposals were out for this round. If there's additional funding, we definitively will be in front of the Housing Trust Fund
Okay.
to see if there's a fit.
Alright. One thing I just wanna lift up that feels like a concern, but I'm happy to support this if the city of Pontiac like willingly ceded their authority to do this and they're cool with it. But 20% affordability, okay. But also, like Mr. Toomey said, natural affordability, that sounds very cool, right? 1,400, I think the FMR for affordable housing for 2 bedrooms is like 1,200 or 1,300, so that's cool, cause that is affordable. It just does feel, a lot of tax money going to these folks to do this thing, which is cool. But millions of dollars that could go to pay for like code enforcement or the sheriff's contracts or whatever. So that's just to lift that up so we know what we're voting yes for, which I'm happy to support this, knowing that, but
Thank you for
just, yeah.
It's big money, but it's also transformational in nature. It's really trying to change. And I think that's what the state's going for with these programs, is to really try and jumpstart some of these communities that have had decades of disinvestment. So,
It's under the cement.
all right, if nobody else has any other comments or questions, let's prompt the vote.
Just need the river back.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
while the vote is going, just to remind folks that there's a really good PowerPoint, I believe this was the one, with visuals and details that I think would be really good to have on hand for your communities.
okay, the motion carries. Next, we have the building management system Phase 8 replacement project.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, Misty Rates with Facilities Manager of Capital Planning and Design.
Steve Foster, Architect and Project Manager for Facilities.
So we are presenting Phase 8 of the building management system replacement. Previous Phase 7s have occurred, and happy to say that, yes, we are now on Phase 8 progressing forward. So the building management system controls the heating and cooling units of facilities along with their associated components such as the airflow dampers, the temperature controls, temperature sensors. So this project will replace the outdated, antiquated pneumatic manual controls of mechanical systems and replace them with DDC digital controls that are able to be monitored web-based, so from either a computer or a smartphone platform. So this project specifically focuses on continuing the BMS controls replacement at the court complex, the West Wing, and also starts the controls replacement at the jail. And because of the size of this complex and also the jail, it just takes multiple phases, multiple years of investment out of the CIP. So happy to say that this is the first 2025 fiscal year project that was included in the 25 CIP plan. So we're looking for a recommendation to move forward to the Board of Commissioners with this project. Steve has been along for all 7 phases as project manager and also continues as project manager in this Phase 8. So we're open to any questions as well.
Commissioner Whiteburn.
I asked Steve this before. I mean, over all the years on this, you've seen a lot of changes with technology, and I mean, this one is state of the art and it's not proprietary, right? So if something transitions, we won't lose the ability to have control over it.
It's not only non-proprietary, it's the industry standard at this point, and it's becoming the very most mainstream system for that non-proprietary aspect.
So even if we sell a building or lose a building or transition a building, we can, it's an asset, right?
It's an asset to that building, and it could receive much more value in sale with this investment.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cavell.
How many phases are there? You've been here for all previous 7?
Well, I keep pushing for more and more because we have a lot to do. We have a lot of antiquated systems in our buildings, but from what I understand, I believe it's CIP planned out to around 2032.
Okay, wow, yeah. And then what is pneumatic air?
Pneumatic is basically controls by old copper piping, pressurized systems that will basically manipulate the physical functions of various HVAC systems. Now we're basically doing an electric with digital signals to force the electric activation.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, let's prompt the vote, please. Okay, thank you.
We have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a great day, everyone.
Same to you. Next, we have item 9C to create a 1 PTNE Sustainability Specialist position. Moved by Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Good morning again.
Hello.
Good afternoon, I guess.
Ease of time, the proposal went through ED&I, it was, we were approved with the funding to support an AmeriCorps position after we had a successful AmeriCorps run this year. Unfortunately, we were not selected as an AmeriCorps host site. And so the request in front of you is to convert the funding that was previously approved to support that to a temporary part-time PT&E position within the Office of Sustainability to advance very much the same work that the proposed AmeriCorps member would complete. And the reason for a temporary role is so that it can sunset next year in September of 2025, so that we are able to reapply for an AmeriCorps position.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
Darren,
Hello.
is this supposed to have been with AmeriCorps a full-time position? And but the budget allows for part-time or?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So the AmeriCorps positions are full-term service positions of about 1,200 hours. And so with that, our part-time positions are 1,000 hours, and so it's comparable in that way, yeah. I don't, because we use part-time and full-time, it's not an apples to apples comparison for service terms, yes.
Commissioner Rahman?
Aaron, I forgot to ask in ED&I, so I appreciate the sunset. If for some reason we don't get AmeriCorps next year, which hopefully won't be the case, this is renewable then? Or what is our plan, I guess, once this sunsets?
I don't really know what the plan is after that if we don't get selected again next year, to be honest with you. The reason for a sunset though is that AmeriCorps positions are prohibited to use some of the words that we have, supplant a position that we have. They have to be new positions that we otherwise wouldn't have budgeted. And so the request is that this is a temporary part-time to be sunsetted so that we are able to reapply as an AmeriCorps host site.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Seeing no one, let's prompt the vote, please.
We have 7 yeas and 1 nay.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. We'll move into item 10, the Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations, and we have a whole bunch of them. 10A is grant acceptance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the fiscal year 2025 lead education and faucet replacement program.
Oh,
You can stay there. You can stay there. They're behind
This
you.
morning, okay.
Okay, this is moved by Commissioner Rahman and supported by Commissioner Hoffman. All right, the sheriff's office is just kind of enthusiastic today, and that's
Well,
okay.
this morning, when the agenda this morning had us listed first, so it
Okay.
changed since it was posted this morning and we got here this afternoon.
Adaptable,
Yes,
that's
so.
right. All right, so we have Stacy Sledge up there and Kajia Walker Fobbs. Khadija, thank you, sorry. Good morning. The floor is yours. We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Stacy.
Uh-oh, try again.
Stacy, it does look like you're unmuted, but maybe the audio is not connected. Would you mind leaving the meeting and trying to join again? We can maybe move on to Khadijah's item while we wait.
Okay, which one is hers?
10B.
Okay. We'll go through.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, commissioners. So I would like to request acceptance for the 2024 fiscal year Department of Housing and Urban Development Home Investment Partnership Program Grant and Emergency Solutions Grant. The consolidated grant award for the two is $2,616,017. These two grants for the next fiscal year will fund 13 positions, and these programs are primarily servicing our home improvement, home rehabilitation work, as well as new construction activities, and also our shelter funding that we provide through Emergency Services Grant.
Okay, I need a motion.
Since we passed on A, I'll make a motion on 9B.
Okay, we have a motion on 9B. Do I need a second?
10B.
Second from Commissioner Powell.
10B, sorry.
10B, right, sorry. Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this particular item? We're on 10B.
Was this above last year's or?
Did you hear the question?
Sorry.
How are we doing compared to last year on these numbers?
The numbers are very similar to last year's. I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but for these particular two grants, the numbers are pretty much very similar to last year. We'll see a change with our CDBG grant that I'll be bringing forward in the next few weeks because Pontiac has taken over their CDBG dollars. So that's where you'll see the biggest difference this year.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's prompt the vote on 10B.
Have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's try Stacy again. Oh, we still can't hear you.
Maybe call in?
Or
Can I call on
Khadijah,
the
I
phone?
think Khadijah, no, maybe some of them.
Yeah, I wonder if she could speak to the grant.
Yeah, Khadija,
Khadija-
can you maybe cover the item 10A, which is the lead education and faucet replacement program?
She could call in on a cell phone if she has a cell phone.
Yes, I'm just pulling up information. If Stacy wants to send it to me, I can present it if you're able to drop it into the Teams chat.
Also, Stacy can call in on a cell phone.
Or Stacy can go ahead and call in on the cell phone, that's true too.
Okay, I'll give her just a minute to see if she can call in case you have any questions on it.
We also know what this is, right? It's in our packet, it's a grant acceptance.
that's what I said.
Yeah,
We
it's
can just
grant.
vote yes on it.
Yeah, do anybody got questions?
No, I said move on and let her
No,
go.
we don't.
All right,
It's nice to hear.
I'm hearing a consensus, there's a gentleman with his hand up
Oh,
in the
right,
back.
he's here too.
And the charade.
Yeah.
I am with
Yeah.
Health and Human Services, so if there
Oh.
are questions, I can help clarify anything if necessary or
Oh.
go over the points of the proposal.
Thank you for
Okay.
identifying yourself.
Way to wait till the last minute, man, all right.
My first time.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Could you tell us again what your name is?
My name is Mark Hansel, I'm with the Environmental Health Unit in the Health Division.
Okay,
Mark,
well, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, well, if there's no other comments or questions, oh, Stacy's here.
Oh, okay.
There she is.
All right.
Stacy, we figured it out.
Well,
Right.
we're
Muted
here
you.
now.
We're gonna go ahead and vote.
Yeah, we gonna vote, Stacy. We're voting. Yeah.
Yeah, don't blow it.
This is more educational than actual.
Right, yes, this is, right, it's an education,
He has money, we need to accept it.
right, okay.
I mean, that's when it's 103,000 on lead replacement, this is more of the educational portion of it than, and getting to people to believe in it, to participate in it, to have it done. It's millions to get it,
Right,
to
it's an
actually get it done.
outreach, inspection, and lead and water remediation from a grant provided by Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I guess also just to note, it's part-time positions, not full-time, just when we think about things.
Okay, let's go ahead and prompt the vote on item 10A. Now I'm scared.
Don't be scared. Did he vote before he walked out?
He did.
Okay.
I think. That's what he was waiting for. He took a call.
Oh, just push yes. No, I'm kidding.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries, so your item has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Sorry about the phone mess.
Thank you.
All right, item 10C, grant acceptance from the U.S. Department of Justice for the fiscal year 2024, promoting access to crisis teams, community police development.
And
Move.
I was just gonna say, you can ask for a motion to accept 10C through
I was
F,
about to say,
because those are all
do
shared,
yes.
so.
Right?
We're just gonna ask the same thing.
You're right, I'll make a motion to accept 10C
Supported.
through 10.
Support it.
All right,
They all
moved
agree.
by Commissioner Wiper, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles, to do 10C through 10F,
We still got one. You're 10F.
okay?
Oh, yeah, the other two for the courts, yeah. Yep.
All right, so,
Sorry.
all right, so I'm gonna open the floor on all of those items, C, D, E, and F. Does anybody have any questions on any of these that they wanna ask? our sheriff's department, who've been sitting quietly.
Out of turn, but.
Commissioner Cavell.
I would love to learn more about the item C about the crisis unit grant, and then also learn more about the Oxford shooting EAP.
Okay, thank you for asking about the PACT grant. So I'm very excited about this one. This was a highly competitive Department of Justice grant. There were only 10 awards given nationwide, and we got one of them. So this was a huge team effort between the administrative team, and then we also have Sergeant Miller here who oversees the crisis response unit. And if you're familiar with our other grant, the COSUP grant that has a sergeant and 2 deputies that are going out and doing mental health response calls, he's the head of that. And then we also have Steve from Alliance here that we're partnering with. So this grant is $400,000, and it's going to fund another co-responder through OCHN. And also purchases a vehicle which we desperately need because we get these grant positions, and then we need them to go out in the community, but we don't have vehicles for them. So that's huge. Most grants don't fund actual vehicle costs, and then some overtime as well. They did a presentation yesterday at Public Health and Safety. I'm not sure if you have any questions for them, but it's an amazing program and they're doing amazing things in the community. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, Commissioner Powell.
I was just gonna say to my colleagues, one, I wanna thank our sheriffs, and I did this in Public Health and Safety yesterday. We know we had 2 situations happen, one in Rochester, one in the city of Pontiac. And I just wanna thank them for all their work, for capturing those individuals who that conducted those crimes. I'm always a supporter of our sheriff's department, just trying to keep us safe. So thank you, I want to go on note about that. And then the crisis team, which I used this example because it was something that they just was deployed to help with. In the city of Pontiac, we have homeless people living in tents. And they're now starting to be in different areas in the city. And our sheriff's department worked with 2 other nonprofits who focus in this space, and they worked as a team to go and help these citizens get any type of social service needs or anything like in that nature. So that was considered just an example, and they can go into more detail just to give you an idea of what they were deployed to assist with us in the city. And that was just last week, Monday. And I wanna thank them because they gave them a week to try to figure out placement and helping them. And as of yesterday, Monday, I was to get a report. I didn't get no complaints. So I want to thank our crisis team and whomever they helped work with other nonprofits and helping those citizens get some type of social service assistance and housing possibly. So that, I just want to share that with you all. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Smith Charles.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm imagining Commissioner Cavell was done with those 2. I wanted to have a little insight into.
They were still to do one more, but
yeah.
they split it on this one. It was just to talk about the crisis one right now.
Yeah, if you wanted to talk about the EAP with Oxford before I ask my question.
Sure. So that one, we brought the application to you just a short time ago. It's been in the works with the federal government for almost 3 years. It's a pass-through, it's from the feds, but it's a pass-through through the state of Michigan. It's an anti-terrorism emergency assistance program, and what this is they now recognize first responders as victims when they are involved in an incident like the Oxford shooting. So this grant is $344,602. It's for 2 deputy positions that will provide peer support. However, it's very limited in scope. They can only assist those folks that responded to the Oxford incident. So it's like I said, a little limited in scope, but we're still happy to have it, and anybody that was involved in that incident will be able to use these services.
So, Chair,
Commissioner.
So with the crisis grant, it's for 1 traveling person, right?
Yes.
At $400,000 a year for 3 budget years, is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, so we have we have an interlocal agreement with OCHN, a vehicle, and then some overtime.
So what I see is the professional services is $257 a year, but that only covers 1 staff person?
Yes, there's only one person. with the interlocal.
Right.
So
So
what
that
page are
feels
you
like a
looking at?
lot of money to give for one person, so that's, I mean, help me understand the breakdown here.
Okay, are you
Cost-
looking at the budget? What
Yeah,
page are you
Schedule
looking?
A,
What page are you on?
Schedule A, so the
Turn
spreadsheet.
around so she can see
This thing?
The attachment of fiscal
Oh,
services.
that's the budget
up
amendment, okay.
Just, cause isn't that, you know. See through.
Okay, what line are you looking at?
So the professional services, which I'm assuming is then because it's a contract with OCHN through the Alliance or whatever,
Yes.
it's 257. So
Okay,
that's
and
enough for
that's
one
in the
person.
back of this, yes, let me see the dates. Yeah, so it's for 25 and 26.
Right, but the cost of one, $400,000, minus vehicle, minus overtime, minus retirement, social security, these sorts of things, ends up only being enough for one person? Let me understand that math, because the professional services line says 257, which I think is what Major Ewing makes, right? All salary and benefits, a major makes
I can't quote that number.
Right, salary's like 170, but plus 35% benefits.
I don't think it's that high.
Okay, in the budget it was that, but
Yeah, so it's, if you look at page, so it's 10 of 14 on the subrecipient agreement,
sure.
it has it broken down. So the not to exceed amount is 257,872 for 2 years, 126,950 for
Yeah.
October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 25, and 139,22 for October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2026 for the one-time mental health clinician, including salary benefits, technology costs, laptop, radio, phone, Wi-Fi, other supplies, vehicle mileage stipend, professional development, and supervision of clinician.
So then our Schedule A that finance did says just 257, but you're saying on page.
Yeah, the professional services agreement, that's the not to exceed amount in the professional services agreement.
Okay, oh, I see, 257 for 2 years, so 126, okay, I see, thank you.
You're welcome.
So then, because it's 2 years, got it, alright, understood.
Okay.
And then for the Oxford grant, part of my question was, so that's 2 full-time staff, right?
Yes, 2 full-time deputies.
And then how many deputies do we have that responded to Oxford, or people in the sheriff's office that responded to Oxford that are also Oakland County, right? Cause I know we had was it 50 agencies responded to that?
Right, this includes outside agencies.
Okay,
Yeah, so they are
And-
only, anybody that responded to the incident will be included in this.
are they paying for this service, or is that some sort of stipulation in MDHHS that it's not to be reimbursed or something, right? So like Lapeer County had sheriffs come to Oxford.
Right.
I mean, if this deputy for crisis counseling, so I guess it's a cop, not a counselor, but whatever this deputy's time, not counselor time, but this deputy's time meeting with the Lapeer County Sheriff's deputy that responded to Oxford, they're not gonna reimburse us?
Well, it's grant funding, so the grant is
Sure.
paying for those positions
Sure.
to assist anyone that responded to that incident.
And it's just housed at Oakland County because it happened here.
Yes.
So then who will most of the beneficiaries of this be? Like how many Oakland County deputies responded to Oxford-ish compared to others? Cause I remember there were, right, like 500 cops there.
We had quite a bit there, but
Yeah.
also deputies in the jail that took care of
Sure,
the shooter while he was in custody.
and that counts.
And their
Okay.
families were affected by.
Okay. Cause I'm just thinking so for example, like a counselor's caseload is 20 to 30 a week, let's say. So then 2 full-time people, that's 60 a week. So just understanding why it's 2 full-time as opposed to 4 full-time or 2 part-time, that's all.
It's gone through a lot of iterations and
Sure.
it's taken us almost 3 years to get this.
Sure.
Probably wasn't what we would have asked for initially, and obviously we would have liked it a lot sooner.
Okay,
But this is what it ended up. So there was a
Understood.
lot of back and forth. The initial request was obviously a lot more.
okay,
This is what was settled on.
okay, thank you, that's what I was looking for,
Yeah,
appreciate
so,
that.
like I
Understood.
said, it wouldn't have been, this would not have been
Yeah.
our ideal situation. This is what they approved. So
Understood.
we're gonna make it work.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else on any of these items for the sheriffs?
I just wanted to inquire about the narcotics enforcement team. it looks like you received we received the highest rating in terms of the application itself. I'm just curious, you know, not to suggest that Oakland County doesn't have narcotics, apparently we do. Just what, you know, I'm anti over policing, especially of certain scheduled drugs. And I just wanted to make sure that this vote was a supportive mechanism, not a overburdening of our systems in terms of locking a bunch of people up. Could you just speak quickly to what this grant will allow you guys to do that would be helpful?
Well, this is a partnership with the prosecutor's office as well, so it continues a full-time prosecutor position, and then it funds partial funding for 2 of our sergeants that are in the narcotics program, as well as a PT&E office support clerk.
Okay.
So I think these are larger scale. This isn't necessarily individuals. This is, you know, we have members from a lot of local police agencies that are also part of the narcotics enforcement team and the advisory board. So it's not just taking drug dealers or, you know, large scale drug operations off the streets, but obviously opioids, fentanyl, whatever else. But the team that we talked about, the crisis team over here, they actually did a presentation at the last NET board meeting and how they can work together and how, you know, obviously there's a connection here. So if we're taking these off the streets, then hopefully we're eliminating some of the folks that this team would have to go out and visit, you know, while they're in crisis, and or, you know, they get to the jail and we have to take care of them in the MAT program. So I would say they're the initial like proactive ones trying to take it off the streets before they end up in these other situations.
Okay, that is a good rationale there. And there's a NET board, there's NET meetings, you're saying?
Yes.
Are they open to the public, or is more so just deputy and officer facing?
Yes, it's more so it's.
Internal?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
There's outside agencies,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's more so for those agencies to get information about what the team is doing.
okay.
That have members, so we have a lot of local police agencies have members on the team that
Correct.
all work
Makes
together,
sense.
so yeah. Then it's basically an update for them, like what's going on and what's going on with their teams.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, let's prompt the vote on items 10C through 10F. Oh, I'm a yes.
You have EE, 0 nays.
We could take a motion for the next 2 together, G and H.
Okay. All right, motion carries, so those have all been approved.
Thank you for your support.
Two items we're gonna try and take together because they're both court related. Item G is grant acceptance from the State Court Administrative Office for the fiscal year 2025 Adult Treatment Court Program, and item H is the grant acceptance from the State Court Administrative Office for the fiscal year 2025 Drug Court Program.
And due to scheduling, our court representatives did have to leave, but obviously they did present on these earlier. The first one, G, is $269,000 that the county is receiving for the drug treatment court. And the second item, although they applied for $172,000, they did receive the amount of $135,000.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
I made the motion.
Oh, you're making the motion, and and Commissioner Rahman is supporting it.
He's got my back.
Okay, sorry, meeting's gone long, my brain.
I do have one comment though.
Yes.
These are excellent programs.
Betcha.
And they help so many people. And just would have been nice if they'd even started these earlier, but they're on board and it's helped so many people.
I don't know how many of you get invited to their graduations, but they're definitely worth going to if you can get to them. They're very, they're just really good events.
Very moving.
Commissioner Cavell.
I just wanna make sure I understand, Bob, where does the money come from for these programs, just to make sure I
I
understand?
don't know where this grant comes from.
State Court Administrative.
Saying taxes.
And we're, thanks, Chris, it comes from taxes.
I know,
Okay, cool.
he wanted to burn you, Bob, so I just answered for you. I'm sorry, Bob.
Okay, thanks,
I
Bob.
knew what he was asking.
Thanks, Chris.
We wanna finish this meeting.
Yeah, we sure do.
No more digs.
I knew where you're
Okay.
going with that.
Anybody else got any questions on the drug court
You
and
don't
the
have to
treatment
agree to
court?
understand, right?
If not, let's prompt the vote, please. This is on both items.
I'm a deputy chair.
That's right.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays. Solid heads count.
Oh, no. Oh, they're not.
Motion carries. All
It's
right.
just the normal times. So just hear that.
We have a couple of things I wanna do here. Let's see, where are we at?
I think we're not voting on
Comment first, and then we'll go into
Okay,
other business.
we'll do our second public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to address this committee at this time?
Madam Chair, I would like to just, and I know we have another meeting to get into, so I'll make it
Okay.
really quick, but Misha joined us on Monday. She is the new marketing and communications officer. She comes to us from 20+ years experience in the.
What was the first name? Misha?
Misha.
Misha, okay.
Misha Joanne.
Misha,
I
okay.
said that right,
Welcome.
right? Yep. So just let's welcome her to the team, and she's now here to help and get any of your proclamations and everything like that taken care of.
All right, she'll be busy.
20 years experience, she started in 6th grade.
Yeah.
She's gonna get the board an Emmy.
I am going to close public comment at this point, and we're gonna move into other business where I have something I'm gonna read. I'm assuming that's why the chairman's here. So there's two other things that weren't completed in time to come to today's finance meeting, and they were the law enforcement services agreement rates and the UAW contract. So I'm gonna read this and then we'll talk. Establishment of the standard law enforcement services agreement rates and law enforcement services agreement overtime rates for 2025 and 2026. The Board of Commissioners has established a policy allowing the Sheriff's Office to enter into agreements with local municipalities to provide patrol services as well as with various organizations for supplemental law enforcement services at activities and events. Current agreements expire December 31st, 2024. What we're asking for is to waive the need for a special finance meeting. The rates are still under review by the county executive, but to ensure they're in place for timely incorporation into agreements with local communities, I'm gonna waive a finance committee review. Okay, and what that means is they'll go straight to the full board for a vote. This gives them the time period between now and the board meeting on the 24th to work out some more of the details. It'll be voted on at the full board if we waive it here.
Yeah, but are we gonna get it in time?
And that will ensure that these contracts are not delayed, because there's been a lot of back and forth and we're very close and everybody understands that. The other one is the collective bargaining agreement, UAW Local 889 for fiscal year 2025 and 2028. This collective bargaining agreement covers 690 employees across various departments and divisions and includes provisions on annual salary increases, fringe benefits, and retirement. Again, we wanna waive the need for a special finance meeting before the next board meeting. The contract and budget amendment are still undergoing review by Corporation Counsel and Fiscal, but it's critical to keep the process moving to avoid delays in employee compensation, particularly the one-time payments that are part of the agreement. So waiving the finance committee review will enable the agreement to proceed directly to the full board after the upcoming special LAGO meeting, ensuring that the employees receive their payments properly. So there'll be a special LAGO meeting before the board, but not a special finance meeting.
I got a comment on that.
Okay.
If we're done, when you're done.
Yeah. Should I read the last paragraph?
No, that's just something.
Okay, all right. Commissioner, I'll take questions. Commissioner Long?
So I'd rather have it come through finance. I mean, we're getting hit, this is a huge issue for people that, with the townships, you know, that have the contract. So personally, I would rather have a finance meeting to go through it and look at it, but I've looked now, you said it was on public services and I can't find it on I've never seen it yet, so. I can't find it on yesterday's public service, it's not even on this computer or on my phone, I looked to try to look it up.
So it was on both the public services and finance for today, but then it was moved over to November, so you.
Oh, so it's not there, so I need to see something sent to me, but I mean, I might be minority here, but I wanna just voice my opinion. I think we should have a finance meeting, cause it's like UAW is what, 600 something employees, that's a lot of our employees percentage to not, I mean, it's just, it involves finance, both situations. So I personally would feel more comfortable having a finance meeting, but that's just my opinion. I'll hear what you guys have to say. I mean, I'll go with majority rules, so.
Anybody else?
When would you have the special finance, just before the board meeting?
It would
'Cause
be
it's-
before the, it would be.
Before the
I mean,
special
it might be
Lago
quick,
meeting.
but I just feel like we
Right,
need to.
I'm sorry, following the special Lago
I
meeting.
feel like we need
So-
to.
Special
Lago
It has not been scheduled yet.
I just feel like we need that
We're
vote
trying to
from
do this by the
finance.
24th?
It's like our
Are
main
we talking
job.
about next week's board meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I need to see the contract
We
and
can
stuff.
ensure that you, because you do
Yeah,
have access to
please.
it, so staff
Yeah,
will work with you after
I
the
didn't
meeting
have
to-
any access today. I've looked for it. But it's a huge issue for us.
Mike says you do have access, it's just not where you thought.
Okay,
Just, he's got you.
alright. So as long as I can review it. But it's up to you guys, but I just think.
Okay,
What
Commissioner
happens if
Hoffman?
we push it off 2 weeks, you know, it'll fall in the normal course of the way we do things? What difference does it make? People are still gonna get their compensation, whether it's that week or 2 weeks later with their pay or however it works.
Do you wanna answer this?
And certainly
or
there,
you wanna-
Brian and even Chair Woodward are better to answer it, but both the explanations we received, for example, the UAW contract, to ensure the one-time payments are in a timely fashion, as you said, yep, it could come later, but to ensure that they're at a certain pay, period. And then with the, law enforcement rates, those have to be incorporated into contracts before December and sent to the local municipalities. And so it's really just about getting those rates as soon as possible to be able to incorporate them into the contracts.
That's kind of some work, I can see that.
Yeah, I see the urgency for that, for sure.
So I'll ask Commissioner Rahman, followed by Commissioner Cavell, and then Chairman can jump in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've had lots of discussions on this topic with Mike Keys, Michael Andrews, and I understand that time is of the essence. I understand that, this is sort of a hot button issue. With all due respect to everybody, I think we should have the time, the respect, the deference that we deserve. And I just don't feel like it's happening, quite honestly. I don't think that we should call a special meeting, is my 2 cents. I agree with you that it doesn't make any sense to do a rubber stamp sort of meeting. But I think because this has been in the wings for as long as it has, I've had my CBT on me for every week for the last 6 months. And I appreciate that there's a lot of back and forth and due diligence and all of that, so I'm not implicating anybody. I respect Brian and Cheryl, everything they're doing. Gia and her team are phenomenal. And if it needs to take its time, it needs to take its time. But I also feel that once it's run its due course, it really does need to come to us as a finance committee to kick this around, vet it, make sure everything is okay before we send it to full board. I mean, that's the whole purpose of finance committee. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we're talking about this year is UAW and the sheriff's contract.
I do.
And I think by bypassing the regular channels and sending it straight to board is doing a disservice to us as a committee. And I wanna be able to go back to some of these departments and say, look, you know what? This is the way we need to do things. And I know for a long time, it sounds like people have just sort of been skirting the process or just getting things to us at the last minute, expecting that we're gonna approve it. I don't know, I don't agree. I think we finally have to put our foot down and say enough is enough. Dispatch situation 6 months ago was a hot mess.
Crazy.
I just walked into that knowing nothing about the history. But 6 months ago, we said we'd have our shit together well in time for January 1st. We're gonna be in November now, and I understand that everybody's sort of in this situation that they're upset. But I don't think that falls on us to sort of make up for that. So my 2
Commissioner
cents.
Cavell?
I understand the sentiment, and that was my instinctive reaction too of hey, we're the board, we're important, don't forget about us, right? Despite what I was promoting for supporting lead level inspections, can never be too sure about that one. No, but I totally hear you and agree with the sentiment, but then the second thing I thought was when someone said, oh, you asked the question about, you asked a question about what happens with people's paychecks. And then it dawned on me, part of why, one, I think having been here a term ahead of you, for example, Ajay, this is new. just like the chair having an open conversation about whether or not something will or will not happen and we can chat about it, this is the first time I think that's ever happened. So I think that does show deference of our leadership or the county executive or whoever said we should have Gwen read this out to talk about it, if it wasn't Gwen herself. But then the second thing I think is, it's hard for us to put ourselves second. And I think that's what we have to recognize as our role here, right? Like the UAW has almost 700 people and we don't wanna fuck with their money, right? That's kind of the short end of it with the UAW thing. And with the law enforcement services contracts, we don't wanna mess with the transparency, thank you. We don't wanna mess with the transparency of being able to have these contracts go to local communities, cause they've been talking about it for months. It's just not our job, that's Brian's job. So it's trusting your team, and it's also putting ourselves second to the 700 people and the communities that are gonna get these CVT contracts. That like, I hear and agree with your instinct, but I agree with what Gwen and I guess Chair is saying, because like, it's not about us. It's about these people and their money, or these communities and their contracts, and us slowing it down so that we can make sure that we're in the way somehow. That feels like it's a us thing, not a the people we serve thing. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So let me set up two things. I don't want to conflate the two issues because they're distinct in their own self, but at a high level, and talking with many of you, objective number one, get these things across the finish plate as quickly as possible. And a little bit is our schedule, because we meet here and then we have a schedule set up when we meet later in November. There's only the one regular scheduled meeting in November. We can call a special meeting, like we can do all these other types of things, but it's a logistical challenge just to get 19 of us all in the same place at the same time that's not already been scheduled the year previously. So like that's, some of this conversation centered around that. I would say to the argument, the deference to the board has all the authority. In fact, I have very much said, these rates will not be communicated out to the world until we do it. But the longer it takes for us to do it, the longer for it to get out there. And I do recognize that there's some communities that want those rates like months ago. So I'm trying to square that. Whatever we wanna do, special meeting, no special meeting, special committee meeting, no special committee meeting, we will have all that information, and I want to thank the administration that they are putting a tremendous amount of work to get us all the answers and information. So let me break into the two issues. UAW contract. One of the issues, the hope was that UAW would be on the committees through this run. The complexity of the budget amendment is such that it's gonna take a little bit longer. Now, that being said, I do expect it by the end of this week, and as soon as we have it, that will be distributed. I had heard almost all the stuff for basically the language in the contract. That information, if it hasn't been completely sent over by yesterday, or I think it was sent over Monday and it may be finalized on Tuesday, that's almost already set. We can have all that to move that forward. So my principal objective is to be able to move that UAW contract to our next meeting because those pieces are in place and it has been communicated. I tried to figure out who communicated to who when we were doing what, and when the first payment, that the bonus payment, when was that gonna be happen? If we wait until our next board meeting, they're not gonna hit a goal in which many of our UAW represented employees were communicated that signing bonus check will take place. It would take place after that, so later than what they were under the impression. So I believe that there is, I feel a degree of motivation and pressure to do that. Now, that being said, and I've said this from the beginning, we need to create the space to understand not just the financial implications of this contract for this fiscal year as it relates to the budget that we just adopted, but also the next few years, and we will create whatever space to do that. And we can do that in a couple ways. We will have a conversation with the Democratic caucus, whatever that conversation is, if we want to do it jointly or whatever is being presented there to present to both caucuses, we will definitely at minimum do that, whether there's a finance committee or not. If there is a desire to have a finance committee, that this committee wants to have a finance committee, we'll just I'll do a better job of noticing when our board meeting starts and anticipate it to start later so that all those questions can be answered prior to the board meeting. So that's that. Coming back to the patrol contracts, the things I understand are still being worked out and we're very close to a resolution in that. once we have resolution to that, that's when I think ultimately we'll pull the trigger, like, do we move this forward to kind of hit the urgency to doing it, or do we take until the 21st? Because we could do that, but waiting until then is just waiting to communicate to the communities what the rates for 25 are gonna be. That would be on us. So to the point of deference, the board, we are 100% in the driving of this. There's an element of trying to accomplish these things because, like Commissioner Rahman said, that it's been on our plate and under the pressure of some of it for some time and would like to get it resolved, but we'll do it on the schedule and timeline that we all feel comfortable. At the end of the day, there needs to be a majority of support for moving these questions. Until that support is secured, we will have as many conversations as many times as we want.
Commissioner Powell?
Can we call a vote? Cause it's simple, we either gonna meet or we not. We gonna do a special meeting or not, correct?
Well, so the special meeting that Chair Woodward's talking about would be a special full board meeting if they didn't want to, you know, have
So
it
is there
at upcoming.
anything
There's really
I need to
nothing that we
vote?
need to vote on
No.
today. This was just an announcement from
No, we
Chair
were just
Marshall.
saying
trying to send the information.
We gotta go.
Our opinion.
Okay.
Got it.
Was
You
there
can hear the
dates though?
information.
Were there, did you float dates just now? Was it
No.
like next Thursday versus next month?
So this is where, these are the things that I feel very certain about. I feel very certain that we will have all the information,
Angie, do you
budget
have a pen?
amendment, and all the documentation around the UAW contract, which as soon as we have that, like I expect by Friday, that will be disseminated and distributed to all commissioners. I think at that point, I know Lago is anticipating a conversation talking about not the financial implications, because Lago is it's more of the policy and the HR implications of that contract. They are gonna have a community meeting prior to the board meeting. If there is interest, I mean, I don't wanna work on your plate, but it's like, reach out to your chair and I think we wanna have a committee meeting, or we are gonna, what I will commit that, in working with Angie, we will have a caucus committee, discussion about this topic to make sure that all the information in there, all the questions are there. We can have a special finance committee if, I imagine the majority of you communicate to finance chair, she'd be more than gracious to convene one prior to the board meeting. And then we'll take whatever time it takes there to get the board meeting done. That's the UAW. The other one, I expect those issues to be resolved sooner rather than later, to be determined whether that's something that runs at the next board meeting.
Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
Can I ask what a special meeting would be geared at accomplishing? Other than in like an FYI or like board, like prerogative? Cause I don't know, like, are we really gonna like not support the UAW voted and ratified contract that was negotiated with the executive? And or are we really not going to like listen to the budget analysis of the fiscal impact of having 1,500 cops on our payroll? Like, are we really, like practically, right? It'll feel good for us to meet, but what are we really talking about here? We got, maybe, yeah. Sorry, Dave.
No.
Commissioner Rahman.
Well, if I can answer Charlie real quick. So I guess to me, it's just asking the questions and getting answers, right? I'm not by any means, even at this point, I support whatever Brian's telling us, right? Because at the end of the day, he's the one that's sort of running the ship and saying, this is what we can afford, this is what we can.
Okay.
By no means do I think I or we as a board are smarter than what he's doing.
Sure.
But I do think we do have a responsibility to at least ask the questions, right?
Sure.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into these things, right? So even to be able to convey back to my CVTs or residents or UAW or whoever is asking these questions, I think for us to know kind of that that's been ironed out, we have answers, is sort of what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So to Chair's point, I actually agree with everything you're saying. I don't disagree fundamentally with any of it. But I guess what I'm wondering is if we could even take the time to do a regular meeting and then retroactively apply some of these things, is that an option? I know the clock is ticking, but with all due respect to the people that took 6 months to get us this information,
Right.
why is it now an emergency on our part to have to be under the wire?
Well, it's
to
only
get this
emergency
in?
on our part because I've insisted it needs to be done.
No, I agree.
Like, we're pushing because I have pushed the boulder over the hill and it's rolling faster and faster.
I would be, at least on behalf of my CVT, like if I talk to Larry Gray and say, this is where the situation is right now, they're working out the kinks, they're gonna get it to us by November 14th, whatever day that is. We're gonna go through finance, then it'll go to board, we'll get you an answer as soon as we can. Now, granted, I'm just talking about my CBT, I don't know where anybody else stands. But I think he would be accepting of that, knowing that we're spending the time and due diligence
So, yeah,
needed.
so let me just make 2 points here. So
Yeah.
the purpose of this,
It's okay.
a special meeting. If there are questions, and what I would say, and we have, our finance director is without question one of the best in the entire business. If this board, in a majority, and I would speak also, I mean, part of the Democrat caucus, there are assumptions that go into some of this, there's forecasting and everything, and if at any point we're like, I see this is what we're doing, here's the basis of it, and you don't agree with it, the buck stops with us. Like, we are the ones that have to live with the choices and determination. So if there are questions about all of those things, and we need an hour to have that conversation, we'll figure out the time to be able to do that. My hope is, and I'm comfortable, because I know many of you have had conversations as well, that the information that's gonna come over is going to lay out, this is like, here's a general plan, that the questions that are about the UAW contract are gonna be limited, because I think the information will be up there completely. I think we can figure out one way or another to be able to answer those questions and everyone feel comfortable, be able to make an informed vote. Again, knock on wood, by the next board meeting. The purpose of a special board meeting, like, that assumption on my part is wrong and we need a couple hours of conversation, calling a special board meeting and pushing off the board meeting a couple weeks, we can do that and could hit some of these other calendar dates that we're trying to hit. So like that's on us to be able, I'm not rushing, but if there are genuine like fiscal questions from a finance perspective, and I would throw it over to Lago on a policy perspective, all those questions should be answered, all of them should be answered, and to the point that we get those things resolved, then we can move forward. On the only thing about the sheriff contract, honestly, like of rushing to the board meeting is because, and frankly, that one's been going on longer and it's been me pounding. I don't have objection of saying, okay, let's get it resolved still as quickly as possible, get it distributed so we have something we're talking about. Make sure no letter goes out saying that here it is without us, and we're not gonna turn that around.
It's probably going out today.
But don't worry, I mean, all people involved in sending any of those letters, they know they will not send a letter.
Probably going out today.
That getting that formally adopted November 21, taking the time to do it, we can talk about that. I haven't discussed that with administration, other things, but the contract doesn't need to be in effect until January 1, so we do have time. I'm also mindful that this has taken a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Respond quickly then.
Well, and for the CBTs, the more notice that they have, the better. I mean, they're trying to fit this into their
They all
budgets.
know though that
They know
prices
it's
are going
coming
up,
up,
they
right.
know the
Oh, yeah, I
indirect costs
told
of the
them.
other
And
ones,
they know roughly
they all,
what they're
they're.
They know.
expecting.
So
But also, I mean, I think these are two different things.
I do too.
Okay? The UAW contract, as far as I'm concerned, has been worked out.
Right.
It's between administration and the union, and they've pretty much detailed what we're waiting for is the gory details in the budget amendment. It just hasn't been put together, but the meat of what has to happen
I've seen that.
has already been done. So as far as I'm concerned, if they follow, to us in the next few days with that information, that budget amendment,
I agree on that one.
I don't see any need for this committee to see beyond that. The work's already been done. As far as the rates, I don't have any problem with moving it forward either. For the same reason, the sheriff's department's already done the work with fiscal, but it's sounding like the commission or the committee might feel differently on that particular one. So do we wanna, maybe we should talk about
I think it would be best as you work with leadership to determine on if that'll go on the normal state of business in November or if it'll go to full board. And obviously, once we do know that, we can obviously let the members know. And if any members feel there should be a special finance committee meeting, just let us know and we'll schedule one.
I wanted to answer just to Charlie real quick.
Okay, Chris.
So just real quick, and it's along with Commissioner Rahman. So I can come to a meeting with my contract, or sheriff's contract, with some questions. But then you think of a different question. I've learned a lot at committee, and then that sparks another question for me. So I personally like it because it's like checks and balances to me, because I'll go read a contract or something, but we are all from different backgrounds. And I appreciate that. And, you know, I might not agree with all you guys all the time, but you come up with different questions and it sparks a question for me. So I like the committee process, and it's just because it's been such an issue with our townships after the dispatch. I like committee, you know, I like to hear what the other people, what other problems commissioners have with the contract and stuff. I learn from that and it sparks different questions for me. That's mine. Now, the UAW, I've seen some of that. I've seen nothing of the other contract, the sheriff's contract yet. UAW, we had that in our caucus, didn't we? Like what?
And they sent us.
And I agree that could go without a special meeting, cause that is already negotiated.
I hear you, Wendy, man.
Okay,
I think the UAW is a
once
separate
more,
issue.
Commissioner Hoffman, followed by Commissioner
I'm done.
Cavell, and then,
Yeah, I'm done.
okay.
As I mentioned earlier, I think we should follow the process. I don't see any emergency about this. Both sides of the aisle, the UAW, the sheriff, the CVTs, they all know there's this procedure. They were told ahead of time, we have to go to Lago, we have to go to finance. We should just go through the regular channels. And once it's resolved and voted by the board, people will be compensated. And if there's the urgency because they get a one-time upfront payment, instead of today, it's on their next pay in 2 weeks or whatever, I think we should follow the procedure. And like I say, both sides of the aisle knew this going in. And even, let's say the sheriff contract, let's say something happened at 11th hour or whatever, but we finally got it resolved. And instead of going into effect January 1st, it goes into effect January 15th. That's how contracts work. That's how negotiation works. When all the procedures are done, then it's implemented. And everybody knows that. It's not like we're surprising them and they're not surprising us.
Okay.
My humble opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Cavell.
And just to make sure we're all clear, cause we talked a lot, what would be the impact? Cause you brought, good points, everyone. What is the impact of a finance committee meeting? It sounds like kind of most of us are okay with the UAW thing, but let's say a special finance committee for the sheriff's contracts in X amount of time. What is the impact of doing that versus not doing that? Just the clear like pros and cons list.
Well, what I'm hearing is if we delayed it, if we didn't just go straight to full board on the 24th, but we said we're gonna follow the normal process, then the next finance meeting, they will come to us with the rates and we will pass them through if we pass them through. And then it'll go to the full board on, I think it's the 21st of November. So that's basically it. It delays a month.
And then the impact of that though is that,
The CVTs have to have meetings to confirm the contracts.
Well, they would, but they'll
might not
have
have meetings for a month.
oh,
They
cause
will
that's
have
the
meetings between the
holidays.
21st and the end of the year.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure they will.
Maybe.
but-
Yeah, they will.
They
Yeah.
do.
But the
All
question
But they
is-
already know the rate, to your point.
They
They already
know
know
the
the
general,
rates.
well,
It's
they
the
don't.
it's
they
the
have an
dollars,
idea.
it's the dollars and cents that they may not know exactly.
Right.
But they already know what's coming.
So they won't find out though the exact specific whatever until the 21st or the 10th or something.
It wouldn't be officially approved by the board until the 21st.
Oh, so then, okay, yeah, cause I thought I was trying to help you guys by being like, yeah, let's just do it, cause that'll help you be able to talk to your people
Right.
about how it'll go
No, I
and they'll
get
have,
it.
okay, okay,
Just to
cool.
I get
clarify,
both
because once
sides.
the rates are approved, those rates then create the contracts
Right.
that will then come
Right,
back.
I get
before
both.
But it's
I
simple
get
math,
both
right? It's like we have 75 sheriff's deputies times whatever
Right, and then 8
equals
times
that.
what they're gonna,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
what
It's
their
going
rate.
to be a little more complicated, but yeah, for sure.
No, that's how the supervisors figure
Good call.
out that many people times that many people,
Yeah.
and it's gonna $900,000
round number.
increase, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what
So
Larry's
seven
saying.
minutes.
Great, whatever.
It's a big deal. They got, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they got planning to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
They might have to say, we can only have 16 deputies instead of
Right.
19.
Right.
That's what I'm
We
saying,
might
so
have to
why
elim-
delay
We might
it?
have to eliminate a school resource officer.
Yeah.
Village.
Something,
They might
right?
put a millage.
They can't pass a millage in 30 days, so
Right.
it's, I mean,
That's
it's a big
future,
deal.
they might need
Alright,
millages, that's what I
well,
said.
Glenn,
And we're already under the.
sorry, one last point. How do we prevent this from happening 6 months or 12 months down the road again?
We're talking to April the other day, we've got a large number of contracts in
Well,
the 2025 year, so.
So, I think there's two things. Let me start with the patrol contract, because this is like something, the patrol contract conversation to make sure that all indirect costs and associated costs and full cost recovery is done by the board, started 3 some years ago. And the amount of work that's been necessary to untangle to appropriately account for, to make sure everyone's on the same page and we understand what we're doing. I mean, it is a change in fundamental policy. So if for the future for these, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I think we're gonna be looking at, like frankly, all services
We're doing something
that.
different now.
It's
And
a lot, and it's more than just, I mean, it's not just like indirect costs, tap this on, because it is like, how do you appropriately account for future wage negotiations, our law enforcement, because our board made sure that all of our law enforcement, instead of just some of our law enforcement, is part of binding arbitration. Like, what's the implication of that? And if that's a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract, how do you do full cost recovery in a 3-year service agreement for patrol services? And so and our finance director is newer on the job, and he can speak for himself, but I know he's been putting in a tremendous amount of time and energy in trying to figure this out, so that this is an apple to apple comparison and not one calculation over here, one calculation over here, and it feels like it's, being made up, when at the end of the day, these officers and the equipment to run them is being paid, and we are paying for it, like the county's paying for it, and so if you, we provide this service at a amazingly reduced rate than if they hired or created their own police department. We're not collecting more than what's necessary to, do these, to do the services, and so, and I have full confidence that we're going to be in the right place. It would have been easier just to say, well, let's take this number, throw this on and be done. But Brian and his team, I know, are doing this right, and it's gonna be very transparent. Like, these are all the costs associated,
All the indirect costs will be
all the
listed.
indirect costs, but everything, all the things that go into the calculation of the rate. And that's what an officer costs. And because it's also
You
the
need to see
equipment
that, that's
costs.
good.
It is also the liability costs that it's borne by the county when we have to pay claims and stuff. So it is not.
The puppy chow cost,
Well.
Alright.
Bring the puppy
We'll do that next time.
Alright, well, we have.
So I think we will have this in it. What I can say, and I've communicated this, and correct me if I'm wrong, that full cost recovery for not just this, but all services need to be part of the culture going forward. And that is a philosophy that is being adopted by fiscal, and we've got other things in the future, so it's just been a lot of work.
I think
So,
it's a-
you don't have to say anything, Brian.
It's a
If I
damn
said anything wrong,
dispatch letter that
correct.
went out.
No, I think
Okay.
you're,
You know?
Chair, you are correct. We
There's
are
another
looking at
meeting, too.
everything from methodology of how it's calculated down, not saying down to the penny, but we have to agree on what's
Sewer is in
included.
here.
Sewer.
Alright,
Sewer.
well, we've had a good discussion, we'll take it under advisement and let you know. Okay, I call this meeting adjourned
Thank
at
you.
1:20.
Thank you.